Hello all, just a quick note before we get going on this episode to say that this is our last one before we take a short summer break. Fear not, we'll be back long before the summer's out. So for now, I'll hand back to me. What's this one about then? Hello and welcome to Sketchplanations, the podcast. Big ideas in little pictures, dissected and discussed to help prompt your own interesting conversations. I'm engineer and broadcaster Rob Bell, and primed and ready to roar, a designer and creator of Sketchplanations, Jono.
Roar.
And entrepreneur and fast food of The Apprentice, Tom Fellerow. Nice. I was hoping you might have roared, but I wasn't sure. Do middle-aged men roar?
Not enough.
Not enough. This time on the podcast, we're talking about the Diderot Effect. I'd never heard of this before I saw Jono's sketch, but it was instantly something I could relate to once I had seen Jono's work that explains it. And you can see that sketch now as the artwork for the episode, or you can click on the link in the podcast notes to see it at sketchplanations.com, which is always a treat. Jono, the Diderot Effect. Did you A, read about this in a book, B, hear about it in a talk, or C, make it up yourself?
D. I read about it in an email newsletter.
Good answer.
But I have later read about it in a book because the newsletter I learned it from was James Clear, who now is done crazily well with his book Atomic Habits, and just has an incredible reach with everything he's been doing. But anyway, before he wrote Atomic Habits and became a sort of a semi-household
overnight
name,
success.
An overnight success, no less. He wrote lots of really well-researched and really thoughtful articles, and I believe this was one of them. That's where I found out this, first of all.
So can you tell us what the Diderot Effect is?
Yeah, so the Diderot Effect is something that I like for many different reasons. Diderot is this guy called Denis Diderot, and he lived in the French Enlightenment period in like 1700s, and he is notable for being a philosopher and various writings and things like that. But specifically, he's well known because he created one of the first encyclopedias, basically like one of the first people to sit down and go, let's chronicle all knowledge and put it in a book. Everything that everybody knows, let's put it in one thing, which is quite a cool thought. So it hadn't really been done before, at least not to the level that he did it.
Wow.
The first sort of collection of all knowledge. So he did that. But the Diderot Effect is from he wrote lots of little articles, some on like materialism and rationalism and all sorts of things like that. And he was really interested in the effect of our possessions on us and material things and how we should be living our lives. And he wrote this really fun article called Regrets on Parting with My Old Dressing Gown. And this is what the Diderot Effect is later named from. I think it was Grant McCracken, a social psychologist, named it. And it's basically a cycle of consumption. So the idea is that the Diderot Effect is when you buy something, you now see your existing stuff in relation to this new thing that you've got. And that makes you want to go and buy some more stuff. And so you were totally fine before maybe, but now you've bought this thing, you're like, oh, this other thing's no good anymore. I'm going to buy another thing. I'm going to buy another thing, and so on. And so that's the Diderot Effect, this sort of spiral of purchases.
So with the Diderot example and his dressing gown, was it? Do we know what other possessions of his he was unhappy with all of a sudden? Yeah.
It's a really fun, randomly fun kind of essay, much like you wouldn't have expected from this crazy title. And the gist of the essay is he's living a really simple life, and he's got like a table, which is a plank, and it's propped up on some bricks, and he's got a mirror with some paintings and some clay statues on. He's got, I think, a straw chair and a straw hat and a comfy robe. And apparently somebody gives him this new robe, or he gets this new robe somehow. And it's this like flashy scarlet glossy robe, dressing gown kind of thing. And all of a sudden, none of these existing things in his room seem to be good enough to go with this robe. And so
you can't sit in a glossy scarlet robe on an old knackered straw chair. Come on.
Exactly. And so he feels that during this essay, and gradually as the essay goes on, he changes his paintings he's got, and his straw chair gets moved out into the hall, and now he's got a leather chair, and his books, instead of just sort of sitting on the table, are now like in this fancy inlaid armoire where you can't touch them. He's got clay figures that get replaced with bronze figures. He's got, a straw hat replaced by a fancy hat. He's got, I think he talks about, they left a disagreeable void which got filled by a clock, and a vacant corner next to the window which was now asking for a writing desk. And the only thing he was left with at the end was this salvaged rug which reflected the previous hymn. And this whole room changed, all because of this dressing gown. It's great.
I mean, is it necessarily a bad thing that he went and bought all these new possessions to match the class and style and tone of his new dressing gown?
Well, your situation may be different. He was, let's say, a moral philosopher, and for him, it was quite clear that this was a bad thing. I picked out some quotes from the article about some of the consequences
let's go consequences.
Of going along this robe.
The road, yeah.
Exactly. And actually, so some of them I think are really interesting, which is another reason why I think it's fun. So he's basically like, I was the absolute master of my old robe, and I'm a slave to the new one. So whereas his old robe, it didn't matter. Like he could like spill something on it. He could sit in a dusty chair, and it was just comfy and it fit round him. Now he's fitting himself to this new robe, and he can't smoke near it or drink near it because he's worried that he'll wreck it. He also talks about, let's get back to the consequences. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit here, but these are some of the things he says. It empties the coffers of the fathers. It leaves daughters without a dowry, sons without an education. You who substituted the fatal and precious desk for my wooden table, it is you who ruins nations. Who knows what will happen with time? You've forgotten your wife and daughter. You've run up debts. And basically he ends up sort of asking God, if you see me turning into this, please rescue me. So yes, for him, it was a bad thing.
Some of that is obviously projection, right? It didn't necessarily bankrupt him and he'd become estranged from his family through.
No, that didn't happen to him. I think he was extrapolating. Should he keep going down this road?
So then is there something about kind of losing your personal identity? If that's what the old robe and all his old possessions were, that's how he was. He was this philosopher. He didn't need possessions, but then something changed and catalyzed a whole domino rally of purchases and this desire for possession. And what did you say? He controlled the robe, but now the robe controlled him.
Well, he was master of the old robe.
Master.
And now he's a slave to the new one.
Right. So then now, is he then a slave to all these other possessions as well?
I think that's what he's getting at. I think that's some of the really interesting things about it is like when something's yours and you've kind of made it yours, and even if it's not perfect, it's like it molds to you and it gives you your personality is this you with this item. And then if you get some like brand new shiny thing, or now all of a sudden all of the bit that was you went and you're just this new shiny thing. And I think also the idea is like if you went and got something fancy, you're now being somebody that you weren't before. Yes. And then you're gradually changing all your stuff to be another person and losing who you were. And that's actually genuinely what he's sort of going through in this article. He's like, this was the only thing left that was still the real me, and now I'm all these things. He says he's got some fancy new painting, and he's like, I'm worried that people will come round not to see me anymore, but to come to see the painting. The painting is the interesting thing here now, not me.
So it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing if his personality and his character suddenly did want these things. And he perhaps did want to change his image and his lifestyle, but that's not what he's saying. He's becoming a slave to these possessions. Because it's fine if people want to buy nice things, right? Can you boys relate to this? Do you have you bought possessions in the past that you feel you may have become slave to?
Luckily for me, Jono made me aware of this a long time ago.
Did I now?
So as a result, Sarah...
Jono didn't know where you were going with that then. I could see in his face, what's he going to say here?
So bless her, Sarah has been trying to upgrade our sofa for a good 5 years, if not longer. But secretly I knew that if we upgraded the sofa, that would just be the start. And our kids are still relatively young and they sit all with chocolate biscuits and all that sort of stuff. So I've been able to kind of hold the line of going, no, we can't, there's no point upgrading to a new sofa, because I know secretly that the sofa will just be the start. And then it'll be the lamps, and then it'll be the painting, and then it'll be the TV, and then it'll be the rug. And you're not just like talking about budget needed for a sofa. You're talking about the whole thing. And then all of a sudden, you're finding you're being cast out to the shed as well, because you're no longer suitably
you don't look good on the sofa.
You don't look good enough to be on the sofa, and all of a sudden, your wife is upgrading for a newer, younger looking model. I've been stoically holding the line in love of our existing sofa, which we were given for a wedding present, I think, from so how could we possibly let this heirloom go? But purely in the knowledge that I know that that would just be the start of the dominoes.
That's good. Jono, that's Tommy's sofa. What is it? It's Jono's?
Yeah, well, we've done that with furniture too. We got a new table and we had a rug sat under the table. So, it wasn't an accident that I had a rug in this sketch, but like the new table made us realize how old and how long we had that rug. And so we changed the rug, and that was quite expensive. Yeah, so that was a bit annoying. And gradually, every time we've replaced a bit of furniture, we realise, we bought this old bit of furniture from IKEA, years and years ago, and it's just been sat around. And you really notice those things once you do it. We had it quite recently with camping. And, it's fair enough. We are a bit different now because we've got 2 kids and they're bigger. And so you camp a bit differently. But we got a bigger tent, and all of a sudden, I think when you get a bigger tent, you want to camp a bit differently. So instead of the super lightweight in and out, we're like, well, we kind of need some chairs, and they've got a table, and why don't we have a carpet in here? Because a lot of people have carpets. It looks really nice. And then you're like, yeah. Some people have like a camp bed that they take with it, and then you're like, well, it doesn't fit in our car, so we'll probably need a roof rack. And so we haven't done all of that yet, but we've definitely moved towards that to the point where like, wow, we have a lot of stuff to take camping now. We never were near that.
You'll end up changing your car because you'll need a towing hitch to carry the diesel generator for all the electrics you need at the tent.
Yeah.
Jono, that's a really good example. So friends of ours that we go camping with, we've got a camper van and we have a roof box. And this friend of ours, he's been stoically withholding purchase of the roof box because he just knows as soon as they get a roof box, there'll just be a whole load more stuff that has to come on every trip. And so he'd rather just be more efficient packing the space that they already have in them, because he knows as soon as he gets the box, there'll just be way more stuff that has to come on every
in the box. Throw it in. Inflatable sofa. Do it.
I'd wager the number of journeys made with a not 100% capacity filled roof box is next to zero.
Never. All went over all I did.
Yeah, I think so. How about you, Rob?
I'm quite a simple man.
Yeah.
I have simple possessions.
Even tools?
Well, yes.
Everybody has their thing.
There are 2 things. One of them is that everyone's you dig deep enough, you'll find it. Tools is one area. Although what I find myself doing what I've done in the past, and there was a particular time of about 6 months where I did invest quite heavily in tools when I was just really starting to try and up my woodworking game. And I'd see things and I go, oh yeah, that would be good. Then when they arrived and I got them, they were either these little tools to help make a job easier. Well, hopefully tools do help make jobs easier, right? But or just these like kind of little gimmicky things. And I thought that would be really good. That'll help. But then there was no joy in it because I like the hard work. I like the graft and trying to get things right in a traditional way. So there are quite a few shiny, fancy tools around my workshop that I don't really ever use. One of them is the router. It's way too big and powerful for what I need it for.
The scary things, routers.
The main reason I don't use that is because I'm absolutely terrified by it. It's this handheld machine that has you can put different bits in the bottom of it, and the different bits have different blades on them, and it rotates at a stupidly high rate. But you've got this amazing ability to
do edges. You can bead edges, and you can make holes in things. And edging is one of the most common use for it. So you can put a really beautiful shaped edge on a piece. But you can also
like a rounded edge along the.
Yeah, mainly what happens is you end up totally destroying everything because they're so fast,
including your appendages. So I avoid that. But the other area that I thought of that I have become slave to. Yeah, let's put it in certain terms. Is my car. So a good few years ago now, I bought my first ever brand new car, which was a real, I thought about it for ages. Should I do this? I was like, no, God, I'm going to do it. So I bought a brand new car. And then 3 or 4 years down the road from that, I have a baby, a young kid who makes a mess. What she does now that she's more of a toddler, and food in the car and all that kind of stuff, and I get so stressed about it to the point that where just before she arrived, I considered getting rid of the car and getting that
would be a good idea.
A slightly more beaten up car with the insides already a bit mucky. Not necessarily because I didn't want the car to get messed up, although I didn't. It was more because I knew I'd be an idiot in how I reacted to it. But either way, I'm still a slave to that possession. I'm a slave to that car.
Yeah.
In the end, I didn't change it because I just didn't get round to it. And it's quite a lot of work.
Yeah. Expensive.
It's easy just to keep it and stress about it, which is what I do now. But I am a slave to that, on a kind of weekly basis. We don't use it that often, but when we do, I stress about it. Yeah, things like anything that's kind of slightly moist or damp or sticky. I just think,
this is just children. They just are half moist.
It doesn't always need to be things that are unnecessary. But I think when James Clear talked about the Diderot effect, it was things that aren't really needs, but are just things that now you want. And so I realised that I probably have gradually done that with Apple stuff, and I didn't mean to. And I feel like probably it's partly Apple's genius, but I only ever had a phone, and then I had a computer which I needed because it ran the right stuff for programming. And now I look around and I'm surrounded by Apple stuff, which there are all sorts of non-Apple stuff that you can buy, but I bought the Apple stuff. And that was definitely one where whatever first purchase I did, I have spiraled eventually down that road. Helplessly.
Tech is a great example of that, though, Johnny. How it's marketed, I think you're right, and Apple are very, very good at that, as are others. And then there's the redundancy, the built-in redundancy. That doesn't help.
What do you mean?
We'll go on Apple. Operating systems upgrades all the time, right? There gets a point where your old Mac can't take the latest upgrade of operating system, but the latest software of this thing that you use needs the latest OS. So you're like, well, great, I've got to buy a new computer.
You don't have to do that with your bicycle, do you?
No, thank you, Tommy.
No,
exactly.
That decathlon bike you've had since you were 5. Still.
So here we go. The flip side are the things that I resolutely will not change because I feel that it's a really key part of my identity. I'd say my bike is one of that, almost comically so now, that I'm known for having a knackered old bike. I'm known amongst my friends who I ride my bike with.
With nice handles. You always put nice grips on.
I'll upgrade the grip tape. Yeah. The other thing behind all this is I'm quite cheap.
Well, no,
yep.
It's like an for you, I feel it's as much of it as an environmental challenge as it is financial.
I'm glad that is also part of my identity, Tommy. Yes, thank you, because I always think about all the materials and the logistics of buying new stuff, and that overrides my desire to buy it a lot of the time.
I do wonder how long we will live in an era where disposing of things is quite so easy. It's a very necessary part of our consumer society that it is. But I do sometimes feel that we're very fortunate that we can go, you know what, actually that rug is quite old now. I'd quite like to upgrade it. And there's very little penalty other than taking it to a recycling centre in doing so. I wonder if that will continue through our children's lives. Who knows? In some respects, it has to. Now, I do have another example I'd like to give in terms of the Diderot effect. I've been in my office for now, I think 8 years, and we started with just 6 of us in that location, and we're now over 20. And so we are bursting at the seams. And so for the last few months, we've been working on a plan to develop some warehouse space to massively increase the amount of office that we have there, which is really fortunate in the fact that we can do this. But I was budgeting on a certain amount to do this renovation work, to create the new office. And I didn't quite necessarily expect the kind of resolute requirement for the fact that, for example, we're going to increase the kitchen. We really need to increase it. My staff have been so amazing in putting up with the small size of it. And we're going to have a much, much bigger one. But I suppose I didn't realize in the fact that, when we're moving to a bigger kitchen, there would also be a requirement to upgrade our fridges. So we can't use the existing fridges or the existing dishwashers or actually probably even the existing microwaves. We're going to have brand new stuff to go with this brand new sparkling kitchen.
Otherwise it'll look out of place. It'll be like,
I naively didn't realize this when we started it. And I was told in kind of no uncertain terms that it wouldn't be acceptable to do all this work and not get new white goods. And then also, there's a desire to basically redecorate the entire existing place as well. And to recarpet the existing as well. So kind of when I was budgeting in terms
you're right
of,
in it.
So I'm absolutely Diderot there. And I think we're also probably going to have
Diderot.
My staff have been amazing to put up with. And, I'm also, really looking forward to this new space and the new decoration and the new carpet and the new desks that I believe that we're also going to require. And that's fantastic. But I do feel quite in the eye of a storm in terms of Mr. Diderot's effect.
Do you feel that you will have to change your identity, though, as the leader of your organisation? Do you have to change your identity in order to be cool with all of this new stuff that's expected or kind of on that Diderot path?
Rob, you make an excellent point. I think as part of a leader, when you start and it's just you and it grows and it becomes 5 and it grows and it becomes 10, it's an amazing thing. And then to 20 and to 50. And yes, there's a huge need and responsibility on me to upgrade myself as a leader, as a CEO, and also kind of my vision for the company and how I view myself. I can't do everything. So I have to leave that person behind that used to have to do everything. And occasionally that's really challenging, I must say. And I have to give up certain bits and give those to the professionals that we've hired. And I have to, take my vision higher. And there have been so many, countless examples of entrepreneurs who haven't been able to make those, who made a number of those shifts, but haven't been able to make some of the higher ones. And so I'm reading a lot and trying to learn a lot about how I can continue to improve myself so that I don't get thrown onto the skip, along with the carpet.
Great point. I hadn't thought about it. Not necessarily from the personal bit, but I hadn't thought about it from the cultural bit of a company before. Now that you mention it, some of the startups that I've been at, in fact, if I think of the first one, we literally had a shed next to the train track at the beginning as the office. And,
yes.
Somebody was giving away a fridge because they were moving out of a unit next door. And so that's what we had first, and the CTO made the tables on the weekend, and it was kind of fine. And then we went to a slightly bigger shed, and then we went to an office. It was still pretty grotty, but it had a carpet at least, and it wasn't directly next to a train line. But later on, when we went to a nicer office, I remember thinking back, and I think particularly as some of the people who were there right at the beginning, you have this feeling that the company has changed a bit and people's expectations of the company change because of we were now in this nice office space and everything's sort of shiny, and you can't have a grotty table in a shiny office space. It doesn't feel right. And so the people coming in now sort of assume that, honestly, that the company is doing better than it might be and has more money, and like you shouldn't necessarily make your own tables anymore. And maybe that's true, you shouldn't, but like that sort of scrappiness of a startup, which is often celebrated when they're really small and things are genuinely really scrappy. If you go into a nice office, it's hard to keep that scrappiness in people's heads because everything around you is so nice. It's a weird thing if you have a startup in a big glossy fancy building. It's hard to take it seriously that you might run out of money the next month. And I definitely noticed like people's expectations coming into the company about how much money they're likely to have change as the office gets nicer. And that was actually a bad thing, I think, honestly. I quite liked the early stuff when everything's a bit scrappier and not as polished.
That's very interesting, because what we're talking about here is the difference between individuals and an organization, and as you say, like the culture of that organization, right? Because as an individual, it's very easy. And with Denis Diderot and the situation that he played out in his essay, it's very clear to himself that the person his possessions want him to be is not the true self, right? So he feels a slave. It feels like it's different when it's an organization and the culture of that organization, because as you say, you might be forced to, and as Tommy, you were talking about there, as a leader, you feel it is a better thing for you to be upgraded, in your own words there, even though you've taken that on board and you know that's something that you need to do and I assume then want to do. Are you still your true self, or are you slave to the company?
These are huge questions, and you both nailed it.
Yeah, quite complicated
in terms of, I don't wish to lose the entrepreneurial sort of scrappy, cost driven, because all the money that we save as a company, we are then able to save for our customers, as it were. And so I don't want us to become a kind of, luxury, but it's not going to be, we're still going to be on a farm. And that's one of the really nice things, in fact, we haven't physically moved location. If we'd suddenly relocate to central London and be in a service office, I can imagine that is very, very difficult to retain the positive aspects of your culture. But it's an incredibly difficult line to navigate. And I will continue to try my best.
I find that really interesting. I'm struggling to get my head around it a little bit, I'll be honest. But
me too.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I think it's the same. Like, we can grow as a person. Like, just because I had some cheap furniture as a student doesn't mean I want to be that person forever, and it's fine to upgrade. I'm not that cheap, but I can buy a framed picture on the wall, not a poster anymore if I want to.
Is there anything else anybody would like to add before we round off this episode?
Yeah, one thing that might be nice is James Clear, in his article about it, has a few tips for mastering the Diderot effect.
All right, go on then.
Which might be useful to people.
Let's hear those.
First one was simply to reduce your exposure to new things. So, for example, if you're on all sorts of emails with offers that come through either the door or into your inbox or whatever, unsubscribe. So don't have this new stuff coming at you all the time.
Yeah.
For example, he says, like, if you're going to meet somebody, don't meet at the shops. Like, walk around the shops, because if you walk past the shops, you'll see stuff you like. So just reduce your exposure. It's a bit like not buying bad food and putting it in the cupboards.
Wasn't happy with that one.
You touched a bit on this, Rob, but like, buy stuff that fits in. So, for example, with tech, if you buy a new computer or whatever and it has all different cables, you're going to have to buy all different stuff. So, if you can, buy stuff that fits with your existing stuff. Another one was self-imposed limits. So we've had this kind of thing where presents you might agree that we're not going to spend any more than this on a Christmas present between us, or if your parents at school birthdays and it's like, hey, let's have a maximum spend for presents, please, that kind of thing. Get rid of something when you buy something. So if you bring something in, get something out.
One in, one out.
Yeah. Also, avoid all purchases for a period of time. So just don't buy anything new for a week.
That'll do it.
A month, whatever. Yeah, just don't do that. And then also just think about things when you feel like you want something. He says, reflect that your want is not a need. You don't necessarily need that. Just go, I do want that, but I don't need it, so I'm not going to have it. And then I was thinking one, which I think comes to wealth quite a lot. It's a bit like careful who you hang about with. Like if you're always hanging around with people who've got all the cool, better stuff than you, you're going to start to want it a lot, aren't you? You just can't help it. So maybe, he actually, Diderot says, my friends, keep your old friends. My friends fear the touch of wealth. So you don't need to get more money and go hang around with rich people with fancy stuff all the time, because that will make you want to be like them.
Yeah.
Anyway, some of James Clear's thoughts around it.
The one that strikes a chord with me there is the wants and needs. I want that, but I don't need it. I mean, that is basically how I live my life. I don't need it, which makes it very difficult to buy any kind of present for me, no matter the spend limit that I've given you at Christmas and birthday. That's a good collection of tips, Jono. Yes, thank you for that, mate. I find that helpful. Tommy, anything from you?
I have one tip that relates to business, and certainly Lord Sugar used to repeat this to me regularly, which was that
there we go.
It's a lot easier to spend money than it is to make money.
Yeah.
You do sometimes have to spend money to make money. It used to be, there's the marketing argument often. But it is very good advice in a lot of instances.
Amen, my lord.
Can I leave with a final quote from this article? Because it's full of interesting quotes.
Yes, please.
Whose article? Diderot's or James?
From Diderot.
Yeah.
Regrets on parting with my old dressing gown.
It sounds like it's well worth a read, actually, Jono. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny, flowery article. He had this really nice thing, apart from, that he was the absolute master of his old robe, but a slave to the new one. He had this nice one. My old robe was one with the other rags that surrounded me. And then when he got his dressing gown, he's like, all is now discordant. No more coordination, no more unity, no more beauty. And it just shows the basic massive spanner in the works that this scarlet dressing gown gave him and led him on this road to ruin.
There it is. We're not saying it's a bad thing to want or have new possessions, right? I guess the trick is that Diderot makes very clear in his essay is to try and acknowledge as early as possible any signs that your possessions are starting to control you, so that you can avoid the fate of Monsieur Diderot and not go financially bankrupt or lose your true identity as well.
He didn't, for what it's worth, end up in ruin because of this scarlet dressing gown, but he didn't live, for somebody who was very well known now and achieved such a significant thing with the encyclopedia. He had this, lived not very wealthy life, and he was essentially rescued from dire financial straits by Catherine the Great. And there's this crazy story that she basically bought his personal library, so she paid him for it, and then she gave the books back to him and then paid him for life to be the librarian of his own collection because she liked him so much. How about that for a crazy story?
I wish someone would do that for me.
Yeah. You pay me to look after my books, please.
Well, listen, that's it for this episode. Guys, thank you very much. Thank you all for listening. Go well, stay well. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
All music on this podcast series is provided by the very talented Frank Cinelli. And you can find many more tracks at frankcinelli.com.